I'm Amber Wilson, 34, a dedicated nurse who worked double shifts for our dream home. Yesterday, I came back to change locks and my husband Nathan claiming he sold our house to his brother Kyle. 8 years of marriage, 3 years of me solely paying the mortgage, all gone in an instant. I stood there, hospital scrubs still on, as my husband of 8 years told me to get out of my own home. The home I had sacrificed everything for. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see how I turned this devastating betrayal into an unexpected triumph. I grew up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle with my parents and 3 siblings. Space was always at a premium, and privacy was virtually non-existent. From the time I was a little girl, I dreamed of having my own beautiful home someday, a place with enough rooms for everyone. A garden where I could plant flowers, and most importantly, a sense of permanence that we never had moving from one rental to another. When I met Nathan Miller at a hospital fundraiser 6 years ago, that dream started to feel possible. I was working as a nurse in the intensive care unit, and he was there representing his marketing firm that had donated services to the event. Nathan was charming, ambitious, and seemed to share my values about building a future together. His confident smile and the way he talked about his 5-year plan impressed me immediately. "You're different from the other women here," he told me that night. "You actually care about what you do." I still remember how special those words made me feel. Our romance was a whirlwind. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. He proposed at the 6-month mark during a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. I was surprised by how quickly everything was moving, but it also felt right. We were married within a year of meeting, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated our seemingly perfect match. The first year of marriage, we lived in Nathan's downtown condo. It was nice but small, and we both talked constantly about finding our forever home. We'd spend weekends driving through neighborhoods, pointing out houses we liked, and imagining our future children playing in the yards. "I want a craftsman-style home," I told Nathan. "Something with character and history, not these cookie-cutter new builds." "Whatever makes you happy makes me happy," he'd say, squeezing my hand as we drove. After 18 months of searching, we found it. A beautiful 1920s craftsman with original hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and a mature garden in a family-friendly neighborhood with excellent schools. The moment we walked through the door, I knew it was home. The previous owners had maintained the vintage charm while updating the kitchen and bathrooms. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs, including a master suite with a window seat where I imagined reading books on rainy Seattle afternoons. The price tag was steep, significantly more than we had initially budgeted for. I remember standing in the empty living room after the showing, calculating numbers in my head. "It's a stretch," I admitted to Nathan. "But I think we can make it work if we're careful. I can pick up extra shifts at the hospital." Nathan hesitated initially, but when I showed him how we could manage the payments if we both contributed equally, he agreed. "This house will be a great investment," he said, his enthusiasm growing. "And you deserve to have your dream home." The day we received the keys was one of the happiest of my life. We took a picture on the front porch, Nathan lifting me off my feet as I clutched the keys, both of us laughing. That photo sat framed on our mantle for years. Those first few months were exhausting but exhilarating as we made the house our own. We painted every room, sanded and refinished the floors ourselves to save money, and spent weekends hunting for the perfect pieces of furniture at estate sales and thrift stores. Nathan seemed as invested as I was, staying up late to install ceiling fans and build bookshelves for our growing collection. "We're building something special here," he'd say, arms wrapped around my waist as we stood in our kitchen, admiring our handiwork. His brother Kyle and Kyle's wife Stephanie came over for dinner shortly after we finished the major renovations. I remember how Stephanie walked through each room, touching the crown molding and admiring the built-in cabinets. "You guys hit the jackpot with this place," she said wistfully. "Kyle and I would kill for a home like this someday." Kyle nodded in agreement. "When we're ready to buy, you'll have to help us find something with this much character." Nathan beamed with pride that night, playing the gracious host, giving tours of our recent improvements. Looking back, I should have noticed how he took credit for most of the work I had done, but I was too happy to care. The warning signs about Nathan's spending habits were there from the beginning, but I chose to ignore them. He had the latest electronics, designer clothes, and never seemed to hesitate before making a large purchase. I told myself his generous nature was part of his charm. When he surprised me with expensive jewelry for our anniversaries despite our tight budget for the house, I expressed concerns about the cost, but he dismissed them. "Don't worry so much, Amber. We're doing fine," he'd say, and I believed him because I wanted to. The first major shift in our marriage came during our third year in the house. Nathan's marketing firm went through a corporate restructuring and several positions were eliminated, including his. He put on a brave face, assuring me it was just a temporary setback. "I'll find something better within a month," he promised, kissing my forehead. This might even be a blessing in disguise. But 1 month turned into 3, and 3 into 6. Nathan's job search seemed sporadic at best. He'd start strong after a pep talk, sending out resumes and making networking calls, but his enthusiasm would quickly wane. Meanwhile, I was picking up extra shifts at the hospital to ensure we could cover our expenses. When he finally found a new position, it came with a significant pay cut. Instead of adjusting our lifestyle accordingly, Nathan continued spending as before. If anything, his purchases became more extravagant. A new set of golf clubs, weekend trips with his friends, expensive dinners out that I was too busy working to attend. I started noticing credit card statements with alarming balances arriving in the mail. When I tried to discuss them, Nathan would become defensive. "I've been unemployed for months, Amber. Cut me some slack. Besides, I deserve some enjoyment after all the stress I've been through." His words made me feel guilty for bringing it up, so gradually I stopped mentioning it. Instead, I quietly took over more financial responsibilities, including the mortgage payments. At first, it was just occasionally covering his portion when he claimed to be short that month. Eventually, I realized I had been making the entire payment myself for several months. One night, after a particularly exhausting 12-hour shift, I attempted to have a serious conversation about our finances. "Nathan, I've been looking at our accounts, and I'm concerned. I've been covering the mortgage entirely for the past 6 months. He barely looked up from his phone. "It's temporary, Amber. My commission structure is changing next quarter, and things will improve. But we need to make some adjustments now. Maybe cut back on the golf membership or—" "Are you seriously giving me financial advice right now?" he interrupted, his voice cold. "I had one bad year professionally, and you're treating me like I'm some kind of freeloader who paid for everything before that." That wasn't true. We had always split expenses, but I was too tired to argue. This became a pattern. Any attempt to discuss money ended with Nathan making me feel like I was attacking him personally or exaggerating the problem. As our financial dynamic shifted, so did our emotional connection. Nathan became increasingly distant. He was rarely home in the evenings, claiming networking events or client dinners. When he was home, he spent most of his time in the spare bedroom he had converted into an office, door closed, doing what he called job research. Intimacy between us dwindled until it was practically non-existent. When I tried to kiss him or initiate physical contact, he would pull away, claiming stress or fatigue. Our conversations became limited to household logistics and schedules. Despite the growing distance, I remained committed to saving our marriage and keeping our home. I worked 60-hour weeks at the hospital, picking up the most difficult shifts that offered premium pay. My colleagues noticed my exhaustion. "You can't keep this pace forever," my friend Rachel warned during a rare coffee break. "You're going to burn out." "It's just until Nathan's work situation stabilizes," I explained, the excuse sounding hollow even to my own ears. The emotional toll was as heavy as the financial one. I would come home after caring for critically ill patients all day to an empty house or a distant husband. Some nights, I'd sit alone on the window seat in our bedroom, the one I had once imagined would be my reading nook, and cry silently, wondering where the loving partnership I thought I had built had gone. One evening, while searching for an important tax document, I discovered a credit card statement Nathan had hidden. The balance was over $30,000. My hands shook as I read through the charges. Expensive restaurants I had never been to, hotel rooms in our own city, gifts from jewelry stores and boutiques that had never made their way to me. The evidence of his betrayal was clear, but I still couldn't bring myself to confront him directly. Instead, I transferred money from my personal savings, funds I had been setting aside for eventual children, to pay down the debt. I told myself I was protecting our financial future, our home, our marriage. In reality, I was enabling his behavior and allowing him to take advantage of my dedication. By this point, I had been covering the entire mortgage payment for almost 3 years. Nathan hadn't contributed a penny toward our home in all that time, despite my name being on all the paperwork alongside his. At least, that's what I believed. After 3 consecutive 12-hour night shifts in the ICU, I was exhausted but satisfied. We had saved a teenage car accident victim who had arrived with minimal vital signs, and his parents' tearful gratitude made the physical exhaustion worthwhile. All I wanted was to crawl into my bed and sleep for the next 14 hours before my next shift. I pulled into our driveway at 8:30 a.m., surprised to see Nathan's car still there. He usually left for work by 7:30. Maybe he was working from home today, I thought as I gathered my bags. When I tried to unlock the front door, my key wouldn't turn. I tried again, jiggling it gently, thinking it might be stuck. Nothing. I walked around to the back door, same problem. Had the locks been changed? Confused, I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked, then pounded harder. Still nothing, though I could see movement through the frosted glass panels. I called Nathan's cell phone. Straight to voicemail. I texted. I'm outside. The keys aren't working. Please let me in. I was contemplating my next move when the garage door opened and Nathan walked out. He wasn't dressed for work but in casual clothes, and he wasn't alone. A man in coveralls labeled Seattle Moving Services followed him. Nathan? What's going on? Why aren't my keys working? I asked, my confusion turning to alarm. Nathan's face showed no emotion, no guilt, no shame. Not even anger. Just cold detachment, as if I were a stranger. I was going to call you later today, he said calmly. I've sold the house. The words didn't make sense at first. What do you mean, sold the house? We didn't discuss selling our house. Kyle and Stephanie bought it. They've always loved this place, and they made a good offer. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. My mind raced. Kyle and Stephanie had purchased our home without a single conversation with me. That couldn't be legal. My name was on the deed, the mortgage. That's impossible, I said, my voice rising. I'm on the mortgage. I've been making the payments. You can't sell a house without both owners' consent. A flicker of something, smugness, crossed Nathan's face. Actually, there were some papers you signed when we refinanced last year. You might not have read the fine print. I remembered the refinancing. Nathan had claimed it would lower our interest rate. He had brought me papers to sign after a double shift, assuring me he had reviewed everything. I had trusted him. You forged my signature? Or tricked me into signing something? Nathan, this is our home. No, he corrected coldly. It was our home. Now it belongs to Kyle and Stephanie. And you need to leave. The reality began crashing down on me. I've been paying the mortgage for 3 years while you spent money on God knows what. How could you do this? Nathan's expression hardened. You're never here anyway, Amber. What's the point of having this big house when you're always at the hospital? At least Kyle and Stephanie will appreciate it. Where am I supposed to go? I asked, my voice shaking. That's not my problem anymore. He gestured to several boxes stacked on the porch that I hadn't noticed before. Your clothes and personal items are there. The furniture stays with the house. I couldn't breathe. My legs felt weak, and I grabbed the porch railing to steady myself. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Parker, was watering her plants next door, watching our interaction with unconcealed concern. You can't just throw me out of my own home, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. It's not your home anymore, Nathan repeated. I expect you to be gone by noon, or I'll have to call the police about trespassing. The panic attack hit me full force then. My chest tightened, my vision blurred at the edges, and I couldn't catch my breath. I sank down onto the porch steps, the world spinning around me. Mrs. Parker hurried over, her gardening gloves still on. "Amber, dear, are you all right? Should I call someone?" I couldn't answer her. Through my tears, I saw Nathan watching impassively before turning and walking back into the house, my house, without another word. With trembling hands, I managed to call Rachel. "I need help," I choked out. "Nathan sold our house. He's kicked me out. I have nowhere to go." Rachel didn't ask questions. "I'm coming right now. Stay put." While waiting for Rachel, I had to endure the humiliation of going through the boxes Nathan had packed. My clothes were haphazardly thrown together, many wrinkled or damaged. Photo albums were missing, as were family heirlooms and many of my valuables. Most of my medical books and reference materials, worth thousands of dollars, were nowhere to be seen. When I tried to go back inside to retrieve more of my belongings, I found the door locked again. Through the window, I could see the movers carrying furniture out the back door to a waiting truck. Rachel arrived 30 minutes later and found me sitting on the porch steps, surrounded by boxes, still in my scrubs from the night shift, shell-shocked and numb. "Oh my God, Amber," she gasped, hurrying to embrace me. "What happened?" All I could do was shake my head as she helped me load the boxes into our 2 cars. Mrs. Parker came over again, pressing a piece of paper into my hand. "I saw everything," she whispered. "Call me if you need a witness." As we drove away, I caught a final glimpse of my dream home in the rearview mirror, the for sale sign already replaced with a sold banner across the front. Rachel's 1-bedroom apartment became my temporary sanctuary. She cleared out half her closet and insisted I take her bed while she slept on the pull-out couch. "Stay as long as you need," she said firmly. "We'll figure this out together." The first day, I could barely function. I alternated between crying jags and periods of numb disbelief. Rachel called in sick to stay with me, worried about my mental state. "I can't believe Kyle and Stephanie would do this," I kept saying. "They were always so kind to me." "Something doesn't add up," Rachel agreed. "Have you called them?" The thought of confronting my in-laws made my stomach churn. "Not yet. I need to understand what happened first." On the second day, I began to organize my thoughts and develop a plan. Rachel's friend Marcus was an attorney specializing in real estate law. He agreed to meet with us that afternoon. Before the meeting, I gathered all the financial documents I could access online. The mortgage statements clearly showed my payments for the past 3 years, direct transfers from my personal account to the mortgage company. I printed everything and placed it in a folder. Marcus reviewed the documents carefully, his expression growing increasingly concerned. "Based on what you've shown me, there are several serious legal issues here," he explained. "If your name was on the deed and mortgage, Nathan couldn't legally sell the house without your consent. Either he forged your signature, or there was some deception involved in the paperwork you signed." He mentioned something about papers I signed during refinancing last year. I admitted. Marcus nodded. "That's a classic move in these situations." He might have slipped in a quitclaim deed among the refinancing documents, which would have removed your name from the title. "What can I do?" I asked, desperation in my voice. "First, we need to confirm exactly what happened with the title and the sale. I'll request the records tomorrow. Then we need to determine if fraud occurred, which seems likely. If so, you have grounds for legal action against Nathan and potentially against whoever purchased the property, though they may be innocent parties in this." The word fraud hung in the air. It seemed inconceivable that the man I had married, shared a bed with, built a home with, could commit fraud against me. Yet the evidence was mounting. Should I contact Kyle and Stephanie? I asked. Marcus considered this. Not yet. Let's gather more information first. If they're involved in the deception, we don't want to tip our hand. If they're innocent, we need to approach carefully. Over the next few days, I took a leave of absence from work to focus on my investigation. The hospital administration was understanding when I explained I was dealing with an unexpected housing crisis and possible divorce. Marcus's paralegal called with the first bombshell. The title search revealed that my name had indeed been removed from the deed the previous year through a quitclaim deed with my purported signature. A signature that I knew I had never authorized. That's forgery, I said, voice shaking with anger when Marcus called to confirm. It appears so, he agreed. We have grounds to challenge this. The second revelation came when I accessed Nathan's email. We had shared passwords early in our marriage, and he had never changed his. What I found made me physically ill. Emails between Nathan and a woman named Diana dated back nearly 2 years. They discussed their relationship, weekend getaways, and eventually, their plans for after Nathan got rid of the house and the wife. There were explicit references to using proceeds from the house sale to pay off Nathan's gambling debts and finance their new life together. One email from 6 months earlier was particularly damning. Once the house sells, I'll have enough to clear the casino debt and still have a nice cushion for us. Amber has no idea her name isn't even on the deed anymore. She keeps paying the mortgage like a good little nurse while I set everything up. A few more months and we're free. I forwarded everything to Marcus and then sat on Rachel's bathroom floor, violently sick from the betrayal. Further investigation revealed Nathan had accumulated over $200,000 in gambling debts at various casinos and online betting sites. He had been draining our joint account slowly for years, which explained why he was always short on his portion of the bills. The most suspicious element was the sale price of the house. According to the records Marcus obtained, the house had sold for significantly below market value, at least $150,000 less than comparable homes in the neighborhood. That doesn't make sense if Kyle and Stephanie were the buyers, Rachel pointed out. Why would Nathan sell to his own brother at such a discount? Unless the recorded sale price isn't the real price, Marcus suggested. Or unless Kyle and Stephanie aren't the actual buyers. A week after being locked out of my home, I finally worked up the courage to call Kyle. My hands trembled as I dialed his number, unsure whether I was about to confront a co-conspirator or another victim. The phone rang 4 times before Kyle answered. I had rehearsed what to say, but when I heard his voice, all my prepared words vanished. Kyle, it's Amber, I said, my voice barely steady. Amber, I've been trying to reach you for days. Nathan said you were on some nursing retreat and couldn't be contacted. Are you okay? You sound upset. His concern seemed genuine, which only confused me more. Kyle, I need to ask you something important, I continued, ignoring his questions. Did you and Stephanie buy our house? There was a long pause on the other end. What are you talking about? My heart pounded in my chest. Nathan told me he sold the house to you and Stephanie. He kicked me out last week, said the sale was finalized, that all my belongings needed to be removed. What? Kyle's voice exploded through the phone. That's absolutely not true. We didn't buy your house. We know nothing about this. I burst into tears, a strange mixture of relief and despair washing over me. Kyle wasn't involved, but that meant Nathan's deception was even more elaborate than I'd imagined. Amber, where are you now? Are you safe? Kyle asked, his voice tight with concern. I'm staying with my friend Rachel. I managed between sobs. Stephanie and I are coming over right now. Text me the address. An hour later, Kyle and Stephanie arrived at Rachel's apartment, both looking shocked and worried. Stephanie immediately embraced me while Kyle paced angrily. I can't believe he would do this, Kyle kept saying. And to use our names? What the hell was he thinking? I showed them everything I had discovered, the forged quitclaim deed, the emails about gambling debts and the other woman, the suspicious sale price. Stephanie's eyes widened as she read through the documents. This is criminal activity, Amber. Has your lawyer talked about pressing charges? We're focusing on stopping the sale first, I explained. If it hasn't been fully processed yet, we might be able to avoid it. Kyle sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. We haven't spoken to Nathan in almost 2 weeks. He canceled our usual Sunday dinner plans twice. Now I understand why. Do your parents know about any of this? I asked. No, but they need to, Kyle said firmly. Mom and Dad need to understand what Nathan has done. They still think you two are the perfect couple. We developed a plan. Kyle would arrange a family dinner at his parents' home under the pretense of an important announcement. Nathan wouldn't suspect anything since Kyle and Stephanie had been talking about starting a family. He would have no reason to think it was a trap. In the meantime, Marcus continued the legal work, filing for an emergency injunction to halt any further action on the property sale and beginning the process of a criminal complaint for the forgery.
The family dinner was set for that Sunday.
I spent the days leading up to it vacillating between anxiety and determination. Rachel helped me select an outfit that would make me feel confident and lent me her grandmother's pearl necklace for strength. "You're not going alone," she reminded me. "Kyle and Stephanie will be there, and they believe you." When Sunday arrived, Kyle picked me up in his car. "Nathan doesn't know you're coming," he explained. "He thinks it's just the regular family dinner plus our big announcement." What if he refuses to talk? What if he just leaves? I worried. Then he'll look guilty in front of Mom and Dad, Kyle said grimly. But I don't think he'll run. He's too arrogant to think he'll get caught. Kyle's parents, Robert and Diana Miller, lived in a comfortable suburban home where both brothers had grown up. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Nathan's car already there. "Ready?" Kyle asked, giving my hand a squeeze. I nodded, though my stomach was in knots. We entered through the kitchen door, where Stephanie was helping Diana with dinner preparations. Both women looked up as we entered. Diana's face registered shock at seeing me. "Amber, what a lovely surprise. Nathan didn't mention you were joining us." Her eyes darted between Kyle and me, sensing tension. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps, and Nathan appeared in the doorway. He froze when he saw me, his face draining of color before quickly composing itself into a mask of casual surprise. "Amber, I thought you were still on that retreat," he said smoothly. "There was no retreat, Nathan," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. Just like there was no house sale to Kyle and Stephanie. Robert Miller appeared behind his son. "What's going on here?" Kyle stepped forward. "Dad, we need to have a family discussion before dinner. Something serious has happened." We moved to the living room, the cheerful family dinner atmosphere completely evaporated. Nathan positioned himself as far from me as possible, his eyes constantly darting to the door as if calculating an escape route. Once everyone was seated, Kyle spoke first. "Nathan told Amber that Stephanie and I bought their house. He kicked her out and claimed the sale was final. This is completely false. We never purchased their house." All eyes turned to Nathan, who attempted a dismissive laugh. "There's been a misunderstanding. Amber's been working too hard, and we had a fight about the house. I may have said something about possibly selling it to Kyle someday, and she overreacted." "Then why did you change the locks?" I challenged. "Why were movers taking furniture out? Why is there a sold sign on the lawn?" Nathan's parents looked increasingly disturbed. "Son, what's going on?" Robert demanded. I opened the folder I had brought and laid out the evidence methodically. The mortgage statements showing my payments, the forged quitclaim deed, printouts of the emails about gambling debts, and Diana. "Who's Diana?" his mother asked sharply, pointing to an email. Nathan's facade began to crack. "This is ridiculous. Amber's making this all up because I asked for a separation. The county records show the house was sold to Summit Development LLC, not to Kyle and Stephanie," I continued, ignoring his accusation. "You forged my signature to remove me from the deed, even though I've been paying the entire mortgage for 3 years. With each piece of evidence, Nathan's denials became weaker. When I showed them the casino debt statements I had uncovered, he finally snapped.
"Fini."
"Yes, I sold the house. I needed the money, and it's my house too." "It was never just your house," I said quietly. "We bought it together. I made every payment for the last 3 years. I thought we were building a life there. While you were building a life, I was dying inside." Nathan shouted, his composure completely gone. "Working a job I hate, coming home to an empty house because you're always at the hospital. You care more about your patients than your own husband. So you stole from her and lied to all of us?" Kyle stood up, physically imposing himself between Nathan and me. "You used our names to cover your tracks?" Nathan's face contorted with resentment. You've always been the golden boy, Kyle. Perfect job, perfect marriage. Mom and Dad's favorite. I finally had something good with Amber and this house, and then it all fell apart. I deserve something for my suffering. Stephanie gasped. Deserve? You think you deserve to commit fraud and steal from your wife? Diana Miller was openly crying now, while Robert looked as though he might be ill. Nathan, I don't even recognize you right now, he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Nathan's eyes darted around the room, finding no allies. With a sudden movement, he lunged toward me. You bitch. You've turned everyone against me. Kyle intercepted him, grabbing his brother by the shoulders and physically restraining him. That's enough. You're not going to threaten her. Not here, not ever again. Get out of my house, Robert said to Nathan, his voice ice cold.
Now.
We'll discuss this when you've come to your senses, if that's even possible. Fine. Nathan spat, wrenching himself from Kyle's grip. Take her side. You always do. He stormed out, the front door slamming behind him. In the stunned silence that followed, Diana came and sat beside me, taking my hands in hers. Amber, I am so sorry. We had no idea. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but sincere. Neither did I admitted. Not until it was too late. Robert cleared his throat. Whatever legal action you need to take, you have our full support. Nathan will not get away with this. Kyle nodded in agreement. We'll be with you every step of the way. For the first time since finding myself locked out of my home, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't facing this alone anymore. The morning after the confrontation at the Miller family dinner, Kyle accompanied me to the police station to file formal reports for forgery and fraud. The officer taking my statement appeared increasingly concerned as I presented the evidence. Ma'am, this is a clear case of identity theft and real estate fraud, he explained. We'll open an investigation immediately, but you should be prepared for a potentially lengthy legal process. Marcus, my attorney, met us at the station to ensure everything was properly documented. As we left, he outlined our next steps. We've already filed for the emergency injunction to stop any further property transactions, he reminded me. The hearing is scheduled for Thursday. The judge will likely grant it given the evidence of fraud, which will freeze everything while the criminal investigation proceeds. What about the developer who supposedly bought the house? I asked. Will they fight this? That's the interesting part, Marcus said, consulting his notes. Summit Development LLC was only formed 3 months ago. The registered agent is a lawyer known for setting up shell companies. I suspect Nathan may have created this entity himself or worked with someone to hide the actual transaction. Kyle shook his head in disgust. The more we learn, the worse it gets. Back at Rachel's apartment, I received an unexpected call from the title insurance company that had handled our original home purchase. Mrs. Miller, we've been notified of a potential fraudulent transaction involving your property, the representative explained. Our company provides insurance against exactly this type of situation, and we've flagged the recent sale for investigation. This was a stroke of luck I hadn't anticipated. The title insurance company had its own financial interest in resolving the situation and would bring additional legal resources to bear. The judge granted our emergency injunction on Thursday, effectively freezing any further property transactions. The developer, through their attorney, immediately filed a motion claiming they were a bona fide purchaser who had acted in good faith. However, when Marcus subpoenaed their records and demanded to know where the purchase funds had originated, Summit Development suddenly became much more cooperative. They don't want a prolonged investigation into their business practices, Marcus explained. Their attorney has indicated they might be willing to void the sale if they can recover their investment. Working with a forensic accountant Rachel recommended, we traced the money trail from the house sale. The evidence was damning. Nathan had received approximately $450,000 from the sale, well below the market value of $650,000. Within days, he had transferred $210,000 to various casinos to clear his debts, moved $150,000 to an offshore account, and spent nearly $30,000 on luxury items, including a Rolex watch and first-class tickets to Bali. Less than $60,000 remained in his accessible accounts. The offshore transfer proved particularly problematic for Nathan, as it demonstrated clear intent to hide assets. When confronted with this evidence during his initial court appearance, Nathan maintained his innocence, claiming I had verbally agreed to sell the house and that any document issues were administrative oversights. His arrogance proved to be his undoing. Nathan apparently believed his charm would work on the judge, as it had on so many others throughout his life. Instead, Judge Harriet Coleman, a no-nonsense veteran of the bench, saw through him immediately. "Mr. Miller," she said after hearing his explanation, "this court has seen the mortgage statements showing your wife made every payment for 3 years. We have evidence of a quitclaim deed with a forged signature. We have emails in your own words describing your intent to defraud. Your position is untenable." She turned to me with considerably more sympathy. "Mrs. Miller, the court finds sufficient evidence to void the quitclaim deed on grounds of fraud. The property sale to Summit Development is hereby voided pending criminal proceedings against the defendant." It was a major victory, but only the beginning of a complex legal process. Nathan was charged with multiple felonies, including forgery, fraud, and identity theft. He was released on bail but ordered to surrender his passport due to the evidence of attempted flight. The developer, once they realized the extent of the fraud, agreed to void the sale in exchange for the return of their investment funds. This created another challenge, as Nathan had already spent or hidden most of the money. "We'll need to pursue asset recovery," Marcus explained, "including the funds he transferred offshore. It won't be quick or easy, but it's doable." During this period, I was permitted limited access to the house to retrieve personal belongings, but couldn't move back in until the legal situation was fully resolved. The emotional toll of seeing my home, with many items already removed or damaged, was immense. "It doesn't even feel like my house anymore," I confided to Rachel after one such visit. "He's tainted everything." "Then we'll reclaim it," she said firmly. "One room at a time if necessary." My colleagues at the hospital provided unexpected support. When they learned of my situation, they organized a collection to help with legal expenses. My supervisor adjusted my schedule to accommodate court appearances, and several doctors I worked with provided character references attesting to my dedication and integrity. Kyle and Stephanie continued to stand by me, even when it created tension with other family members who felt they should remain neutral in the dispute. They testified in court about Nathan's lies regarding the house sale. "My brother betrayed not just his wife, but our entire family," Kyle stated firmly during his testimony. "He used our names to perpetrate fraud and expected to get away with it. He needs to face consequences for his actions." Nathan's parents were more conflicted. While they acknowledged their son's wrongdoing, they struggled with seeing him face criminal charges. Our relationship became strained as they made well-intentioned but hurtful comments about finding a compromise or working things out privately. 4 months into the legal proceedings, we received the breakthrough we needed. The offshore account Nathan had established was frozen after our legal team worked with international banking authorities. Almost simultaneously, Diana, the woman from the emails, came forward with additional evidence. "He promised me we'd use the money to start a new life together," she told the prosecutor. "But once the funds came through, he became evasive about when we'd leave. Then I found receipts for just one plane ticket to Bali in his name. He was planning to abandon me too." Diana provided text messages, photos of luxury items Nathan had purchased, and details about the gambling debts that corroborated our case. Her testimony was particularly damaging because it eliminated any possibility that Nathan could claim a misunderstanding or momentary lapse in judgment. The evidence now showed months of calculated planning. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence, Nathan finally agreed to a plea deal. He would plead guilty to reduced charges, make full restitution, and serve a shorter sentence with probation. The restitution included returning full ownership of the house to me, paying all legal fees and costs associated with rectifying the property records, and additional damages for emotional distress. The judge also ordered mandatory counseling for gambling addiction as part of his sentence. "It's not Everything he deserves, Marcus acknowledged when explaining the deal. But it gives you back your home with clear title and some financial compensation without dragging this out for years. After careful consideration, I accepted the plea agreement. While part of me wanted Nathan to face the maximum penalties for what he'd done, another part just wanted to move forward with rebuilding my life. The day Nathan appeared in court to formalize the plea was surreal. He looked diminished somehow. The confident, charming man I had married replaced by someone who avoided eye contact and spoke in a subdued voice. When given the opportunity to address the court, he offered a carefully worded apology that sounded rehearsed and hollow. I declined to make a victim impact statement. Nothing I could say would change what had happened or make Nathan truly understand the depth of his betrayal. Instead, I sat silently, watching as the judge accepted the plea and pronounced the sentence. As Nathan was led away by court officers, I felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory, just a profound exhaustion and relief that this chapter was finally closing. Outside the courthouse, Kyle squeezed my shoulder supportively. "It's over, Amber. You can start fresh now." "Not entirely fresh," I corrected him. "I'm keeping the house. After everything, it's still mine." 6 months after being locked out of my own home, I stood on the front porch with a new key in my hand. The sold sign was gone, as were all legal claims against the property. According to county records, I was once again the sole legal owner of the house I had fought so hard to keep. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted the key into the lock. Behind me, Rachel, Kyle, and Stephanie waited patiently, arms full of cleaning supplies and moving boxes. This moment felt monumental, reclaiming not just a house, but my sense of security and autonomy. The door swung open, and I stepped inside. The house was empty now, most of the furniture either taken by Nathan or sold to help satisfy the restitution requirements. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the windows. Despite the emptiness, the house still felt like mine in a way I couldn't quite articulate. "Welcome home," Rachel said softly, following me inside. The next few weeks were dedicated to cleansing the space, both literally and figuratively, of Nathan's presence. We repainted every room, choosing colors that I loved but Nathan had dismissed as too bold or not sophisticated enough. The sunny yellow kitchen he had thought tacky now brightened my mornings as I had my coffee. Kyle and his father helped me install new locks on all the doors and a security system that sent alerts directly to my phone. Physical security was important, but equally vital was the psychological security of knowing this was truly my space again. The divorce proceedings were straightforward compared to the criminal case. Nathan offered no resistance to my demands, likely aware that contesting anything would only harm his position with the criminal court. The marriage was dissolved quickly, with the judge citing fraud and criminal conduct as grounds. Finding myself single at 34 wasn't part of my life plan, but I discovered a surprising sense of freedom in making decisions without considering Nathan's preferences or moods. I adopted a rescue dog, something Nathan had always opposed, and named her Liberty. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but it felt right. Through victim services, I connected with a support group for survivors of financial abuse. Until joining, I hadn't fully recognized my experience as abuse, but listening to others' stories helped me understand the patterns of control, manipulation, and exploitation that had characterized my marriage. Financial abuse is insidious because it's often invisible, even to the person experiencing it, our group facilitator explained. Society doesn't talk about it the way we discuss other forms of domestic abuse, but the trauma and violation are just as real. Participating in the group helped me recognize warning signs I had missed and understand why I had stayed in a deteriorating relationship for so long. The shame I had carried, feeling stupid for not seeing Nathan's true nature sooner, gradually lifted as I realized how common my experience was. "You weren't stupid," Rachel insisted one evening as we sat on my newly built deck, watching Liberty explore the backyard. "You were trusting. There's a difference." Reconnecting with Nathan's family proved complex. His parents struggled to reconcile the son they thought they knew with the man who had committed these crimes. They made well-intentioned but often hurtful comments about forgiveness and second chances. I have forgiven him, I explained to them during a difficult conversation. Forgiveness was necessary for my own healing. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or allowing someone to have the opportunity to cause the same harm again. Kyle and Stephanie remained steadfast allies. They visited regularly, helping with home improvements and keeping me company on difficult days. When they announced they were expecting their first child, they asked if I would be the baby's godmother, a gesture of family connection that moved me deeply. As part of my healing process, I started a blog documenting my experience and recovery. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds of comments from people who had experienced similar betrayals or who were currently in relationships with concerning financial dynamics. Your story helped me recognize what's happening in my own marriage, one reader wrote. I've made an appointment with a lawyer for next week. The blog connected me to advocacy organizations working to raise awareness about financial abuse. I began speaking at community events, sharing my story and the warning signs I had missed. These speaking engagements were emotionally draining but deeply fulfilling. Returning to dating proved more challenging than I expected. The first few attempts were disasters. I was hypervigilant about potential red flags and struggled to trust even the most innocuous statements. It takes time, my therapist assured me. Trust is rebuilt slowly, both with others and with yourself. She was right. Eventually, I met Michael, an architectural engineer who showed patience with my trust issues and transparency with his own finances from the beginning. Our relationship developed slowly, with clear communication and boundaries. On our fifth date, I took a deep breath and told him my full story, the betrayal, the legal battle, everything. I had learned the hard way that secrets and avoidance only created space for deception to flourish. Thank you for trusting me with that, he said when I finished. It couldn't have been easy to share. It gets easier each time, I admitted. Besides, I'm not ashamed anymore. What happened says everything about who Nathan is and nothing about who I am. A year after reclaiming my home, I stood in the freshly renovated master bedroom, now painted a peaceful sage green with photographs I had taken during a solo hiking trip decorating the walls. The window seat, once a symbol of broken dreams, had become my favorite reading spot, especially on rainy Seattle afternoons. My phone buzzed with a notification from my neighborhood watch app. Nathan had been released early for good behavior. For a moment, old anxiety fluttered in my chest, but it passed quickly. The security system was state-of-the-art, my financial accounts were protected, and most importantly, I was not the same woman he had manipulated and betrayed. That evening, Rachel, Kyle, Stephanie, and several colleagues from the hospital gathered in my backyard for a house reclaiming celebration, marking 1 year since I had retaken possession. As we raised glasses in a toast, I looked around at the supportive community I had built and the home I had fought for. To new beginnings, Rachel offered as a toast. And to trusting ourselves, I added. Later, after everyone had left, I sat alone on the porch swing, Liberty curled at my feet. The neighborhood was quiet, a gentle summer breeze carrying the scent of my newly planted garden. In this moment of peace, I recognized how far I had come from that devastating day when I stood locked out of my own home. The house was mine now, truly mine in a way it had never been before. But more importantly, so was my life. If you've ever experienced financial betrayal or are noticing warning signs in your own relationship, please know you're not alone. Share your stories in the comments below if you feel comfortable. Has someone ever betrayed your trust in a way that seemed impossible to recover from? How did you rebuild? Please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that even after the worst betrayals, rebuilding is possible. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you're stronger than you know.